I got him 2 years ago. Been thinking about it a lot, and I was like, yeah, it is more ethical, and it's healthy meat, cheap. I'm going to try it out. I started it like 7 years ago, and then I've went every year since. I got 3 deer last year.
Well, in the wild, animals have nice, comfortable lives. Nothing bad happens to them.
Yeah.
And the brutality of what you inflict upon them is just awful, sir.
Yeah, this one was getting ready to go to Disneyland. And then...
Well, big things happening in the news, as you know. This is the Exploding Star Podcast, episode 21, I believe. We're back again. Tony, what have you been up to, man?
Working on the cabin. Here pretty soon I'm going to put some videos up for people to see.
Awesome. I want to see.
A shot by shot of making this log cabin. So getting pretty close. I'm about a week and a half, 2 weeks away from putting a roof on. So
did you build a subterranean secret bunker down there underneath of it?
No.
Well, ISIS-K did bomb. You saw this. I in the last couple of days, there were some U.S. retaliatory strikes, apparently without Taliban knowledge. I'm not sure what the specific details of those were, but pretty crazy footage.
Yeah.
Killed 170 civilians, this ISIS-K bombing, and 13 U.S. troops.
Killed 13 U.S. troops. Yeah, it's...
what about the 170 civilians, too? I mean, Jesus. That's...
Yeah. I mean, no, it's a life's a life. This is almost immediately going to devolve into civil war. It's just so sad. The country's already been wrecked as wrecked could be. And you're going to have all these different groups vying for power. At least before, at the very least, the Taliban kind of had nominal control over the country. There weren't anybody big enough to challenge him, I guess, directly. But now they don't. It's just going to be a mess.
Well, this was just a suicide bombing. I don't think ISIS-K is going to put up any sort of fight to try and take over territory in Afghanistan, especially now. The Taliban is pretty well outfitted at this point. This was, but as far as border security, they're not there yet, No,
I think it's not that they're going to try to take over. I think the fear is that they're going to basically develop their own kind of autonomous regions, which is kind of par for the course for how Afghanistan's operated forever.
Well, yeah, that's how the North has been operating it for decades.
Yeah. So, okay, they fight against the Taliban and end up working out some deal, or just happens to work out that way that this region over here is ISIS region, and Taliban stays over here, and ISIS does their thing. And
well, ISIS is punching right. ISIS is criticizing the Taliban for not being far enough to the right.
Obviously, yeah. Yeah. I mean, they went on that the media offensive. Yeah, I guess that's what. Yeah, they were talking about how they were in favor of women's rights and all this crap. And of course, when you hear what their definition of women's rights is, nonsense.
Well, in Kabul, it looks like they might try to do that a little bit, but out in the country, the shit still goes on because we still see videos of it. We see videos all the time of the caning of these women who are committing these misdeeds and whatnot.
They had some Australian journalist just recently, within the past week, she went there and she was sitting down with some Taliban officials that had just taken over, and they moved in some it was outside of the city. And they went to this region. There was a guy accused of stealing a goat, and they talked to the guy, and basically like this Taliban dude and a couple others, and they're like, okay, well, So you admit to it. And he's like, yeah, I admit to it. He's like, okay, well, we're going to cut your hand off. And the woman was like, you're going to cut his hand off.
I don't
He's
object
like, well,
to that as much as the beating of women. I mean, he did steal.
Yeah, I mean, beating the
That's
shit out of a woman.
That's better than 10 years in prison. I'd rather take a loss of a hand over 10 years in prison, wouldn't you?
That's pretty close. 15 years. 15 years.
10 years is a stretch, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. I probably would. If I
only serve 85% of it, so if it's a violent
case. A full 10.
10
full
flat,
10 years.
I'll take my left
flat.
hand. Take my left hand. My right, I don't know. I have to think about it, but I'd probably still go with the hand.
Yeah, I probably would too. Just be sanitary. That's all I'd ask. So
the media is going ape shit. Even CNN and companies like this are going ape shit against Joe Biden for this. This is the Intercept. They're going through these military generals that the media has been circulating, talking shit about Biden's withdrawal strategy, quote unquote, and how they're all on the boards of these what do you call them, defense contracting firms and whatnot.
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly here. Jack Keane is executive chair of AM General, the company that makes Humvees. Keane also sits on the board of Kailoom Technologies, which manufactures military tech deployed in Afghanistan.
I think the administration made a terrible mistake in pulling our troops out and giving the Taliban the opportunity to take the country over. It's going to become a more dangerous place, threatening America, and the world's a more dangerous place.
Joining me now for more is General David Petraeus, who served as commander of U.S. forces in Afghanistan and was also the director of the CIA.
David Petraeus is partner at KKR, a global private equity firm with assets in the defense sector.
I would say that we should literally reverse the decision. I said that I feared that we would come to regret this decision, and we already are.
Why would anybody listen to David Petraeus on these matters? And why are our fucking generals on the boards of directors of these fucking private equity firms with defense contractor holdings? What is going on over here?
Yeah, we need like an expanded emoluments clause for any high governmental office.
He's like a 4-star general, dude.
And that's so crazy about this. So like when they say stuff like partner, I mean they're sitting on the board. I mean, I guess that can mean a number of things. That can mean they're deeply involved.
No, partner means they're partner. That's as high as it gets.
Yeah, but so my point is that even if it were just something where he goes and just gives a talk to him and gets a paycheck once a year and it's nothing, it looks so bad. And for a high military office like that, even the appearance is incredibly important. Like, I want to know for a fact that you're making your decisions based on what you think is best if you're leading the greatest military, best for the military and best for the country, if you're leading the greatest military force on the face of the planet. And it's so obvious that it could be a conflict. It probably is in most of these cases, but
So the argument you're making is basically that even the appearance of a conflict of interest, he should not be in public saying anything about it, because there is at least the appearance of a conflict of interest.
I can't trust you. You might be sincere, and he might be not taking that into account at all. But I don't know that. I know that you're getting paid by these people. I know that they're making money off of what you're saying, and
the fact that the media would bring him on and let him do that just speaks to how they just have no integrity left.
No, they don't. And
without calling
it out.
When it comes to matters of like foreign policy, the media is just awful.
Hey, I've got no problem with the media bringing him on, but you gotta preface that interview. Okay, this guy gets paid by all these people that get paid every time we send our military forces somewhere. So
right, people
everything that he's going to say,
what he says.
yeah. Hey, a lot of news reporters do that. Hey, just by the way, this, my company is owned by General Motors, and this company we're getting ready to talk about is also owned by the company that owns us. You have to disclose that information.
Right. Not sure if you had time to watch this, but I did watch it, actually. The whole thing.
Robert Dubois. He's in prison for putting Superman in the ICU with a kryptonite bullet.
I'm not joining your suicide squad.
We'll see.
My court date is coming up. And Miss Waller said maybe you could help me out.
You're flexing in my door!
Everyone stand down.
Miss Waller, I don't...
Stand down!
They make it look serious, but it's actually pretty silly of a movie.
I didn't see it. I didn't
Oh, man. I'm not going to spoil it for you then, but it's somewhat political, which is why I put it on the docket here.
Okay. Yeah,
they allude to American imperialism, and the plot is sort of centered around that idea.
I'm so burnt on all these movies. First off, DC in general, most of your movies suck, DC, and it's hard for me to give you the benefit of the doubt anymore. Did you watch any of the Marvel shows?
I hate all the Marvel shit, dude.
I loved the movies for the Infinity Saga, the Iron Man, the Captain America, all those. But they did the Falcon and Winter Soldier and another one recently of the TV shows that they did after Thanos, and it was just so overtly political, woke politics, just right out in your face. Falcon just yelling at senators, "You got to do better."
I haven't seen it, so I won't comment on it. But that sounds like right-wing propaganda, dude.
I've got no problem. I mean, it was coming from a left perspective. It was woke politics that he was teaching.
Are you sure it wasn't just mentioning the fact that black people exist, or were they actually pandering? Were they actually pandering to the left?
Yeah, it felt like they were pandering to the young woke left. That's what it.
Interesting.
I don't know. It could have.
That's how they make their fucking movies, dude. They look at the polls and they target a demographic with this shit. They don't do any actual work to make a good film.
Yeah, if it's well crafted if the story includes elements that point out these different social or political or economic issues, I'm okay with that. I just want to hear a good story. But when you start sneaking shit in and you throw this stuff in there because you want to appease certain groups of people,
the people with the money,
it's so obvious. It is so obvious.
That's capitalism.
I mean, this is
at least DC has the balls to make rated R films like this one, and this actually has a storyline where America basically is in these South American countries wreaking havoc. And there's more than just that. There's several political sort of through lines in this film, and you can't deny the greatness of the Dark Knight series. Surely,
just the Heath Ledger one was the only one worth watching, as far as I'm concerned.
Batman Begins was good too. All three of them were good, really. I thought they're overly long and it's. I mean,
it was all right. The Dark Knight was, I think, a master. Actually, I don't know. Did you see the Joker movie? Was getting turned into with Joaquin Phoenix?
Oh yeah, I love Joaquin.
Oh my god. Yeah. All right, this is just getting into talking about movies now.
I know. This is a New York Times piece. Apparently, somehow the federal government forced hospitals to disclose what prices they negotiate with different insurance companies are. And the differences are pretty astounding here. The price for a colonoscopy at Beaumont Hospital, Royal Oak, is $728 with Blue Cross, $999 with Cigna, and $1,800 with Humana.
Makes sense.
The price for an emergency room foot X-ray at Baylor Medical Center in Dallas is $971 with United, $1,727 with Blue Cross, and $800 without insurance.
This is not what the individual is paying. This is what the hospital is charging them.
Well, sure.
Okay.
I mean, these are the different price that they have to show now. They have to disclose to the federal government the prices that they negotiate with different insurance companies. And the prices are wildly different in some cases.
I mean, it is literally the least that they could do. It is something. I'm glad that information's out there, but it's imagine that in a different industry. So I just filed an insurance claim on my house to have my roof replaced.
Right.
And I'm just imagining going to the hardware store, because I put the new roof on myself, going down there and getting a quote, and then being like, well, what's your insurance provider? Oh, okay, well, it's going to be $5,500 now. Like, if you had State Farm, we could have done it for 48, but what are you talking about? This.
Yeah, well, it just points out how inefficient the whole system is. It just points out in blatant detail the fact that these insurance companies have no purpose whatsoever in the market. They have no purpose. What is the purpose of the insurance company? Why do they even exist, dude? So they can negotiate to get these different fucking prices? Look at this, dude. With Humana, over double the price of what a colonoscopy is with Blue Cross. What is?
Yeah, and the fact that this is not really known that you.
Well, they fought tooth and nail to keep this legislation from getting through to where they would have to do this.
Of course. So I'm going to use my word of the day. This is very Kafka-esque. So, Franz Kafka's novel, you don't hide the shady dealings of the government or of these bureaucracies in the shadows.
Right.
You hide them under layers and layers and layers of tedium and bureaucracy, to where nobody's going to read it. Nobody's going to look into it. They don't care. It's just too mundane to even care about, to read through
somebody
the pages
will look
and
at
pages.
It. If it's
somebody
out there,
does,
at least somebody will look at it. Some journalist who's trying to make a name for himself can at least get access to it. But when you can't even see what's going on behind the scenes, it just leads to so many distortions in the market, dude.
I would just like, some insurance rep to come out and, okay, so why are you charging these? And, I hear them stumble through this litany of non sequiturs.
Bring them before Congress and have them testify. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Why are you charging Humana customers double what you're charging Blue Cross customers?
And we find out they're all lizard people like Mark Zuckerberg.
And the truth is, if we had government insurance, if we had Medicare for all, then the numbers would be a quarter of that, if not less, just because of economies of scale. There's just so much more negotiating power. There's really no reason for these companies to exist except to create more fucking rich people who don't want to pay their taxes. That's the only reason they exist.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, I have stumbled across a new Deepfake app. Let's check this out.
Oh, God. Bye, everybody. Nice knowing you.
It's not as good as the last one, but quality-wise, who knows how good it can get. I didn't delve too deeply into it, but let's see here. What do we got? What's up first? This is Senator John Kennedy, the one and only, telling a bad joke in front of Congress. And I have put your face in front of him, Tony. See how accurate it was.
President reserving the right to object.
I don't think it came out that good.
And with all the respect I can muster,
it's like you when you're 60 or something.
This bill has more red flags than the Chinese embassy.
You can definitely tell through the eyes and the nose especially, you can tell. If it wasn't for his big jowls, it'd probably be a lot better.
I could see it. What's the original?
You want to see what John Kennedy looks like?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the nose. The nose will tell it.
This is he's a discount Mitch McConnell, basically, is what John Kennedy is.
He's been trying to tell you today.
Okay, yes,
I say this gently. Your user agreement sucks.
He tells it like it is, Tony.
Certainly does. Well, it was all right. It was all right.
He didn't tell his bad joke yet. Hold on. Let him tell his bad joke.
I'm objecting, despite my great admiration for the senior senator from Illinois, for 3 reasons. The first reason...
Apparently, the more iterations you let it run, the better it gets, but it takes a long time for the technology to do its thing.
I can best explain by telling you a story. An oil man was talking to his banker one day. And the banker said, Mr. Oil Man, the bank loaned you $1 million to rework all your old oil wells, and they went dry.
Is it like looking into a mirror?
Man said, could have been worse.
It's got there's something drawing.
And then the banker said to the oil man, the banker said, Mr. Oil Man, we own
unsettling.
You a second $1 million.
It's unsettling. Like I could
to
definitely
drill
see
brand
myself
new
in there a
wells.
little bit.
And they all went dry. What do you say about that? And the oil man.
Yeah, maybe like
It's weird to see your face and his voice come out.
And then the banker
eyebrow
said
ridge.
to the old man,
The eyebrow ridge.
my bank loaned you $3 million to buy new drilling equipment, and it all broke down. What do you say about that? And the oil man said it could have been worse.
It looks legit, like the way it's moving.
The banker now is very upset. He said,
really
what do you
realistic.
mean it could have been worse? We loaned you $3 million and you lost all of it. What do you mean it could have been worse? And the oil man said, it could have been my money.
Oh, it should have been my money. What a great joke.
Mm-hmm. Old John Kennedy. I might run a few more iterations, see if it gets better. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But hey, we're close. Another 5 years, dude. There's actually a branch of the, I think it's the CIA that has a project dedicated to maintaining the ability to discern these videos, like the reality of them. Like there's some sort of computer way they can tell that it's a deepfake. You know,
I'm
they're
sure
trying to maintain that technology.
And I imagine that's going to be pretty important.
I would say
it's going to reach a point where
political ads.
Yeah, it's going to reach a point where you're going to hear people. I mean, I'm familiar with like at least on the voice end, Rogan in particular. There's a couple deep fakes of him. It's not visual, it's just his voice. But there's so many hours of his podcast. They have him saying every word with every inflection and iteration.
Yeah. That many iterations of the
and
sure.
They can get him to say
pretty accurate.
Yeah, they can get him to say anything, and it sounds just spot on. You know, I'm sure you can go with a computer and you can find where it's been cobbled together through the program, but you know,
somebody
human
can
ear,
figure it out. I hope.
Yeah, hopefully.
Because anything that is going to be used in a political ad sort of way is going to be heavily funded by the right and these fucking think tanks, dude.
So I can't wait for the first political ad to run that does have a faked, and I hope that they go all out with it. You know,
somebody will try it for sure. At some point, somebody will try it for sure.
Yeah, and just you know, swing for the fences on it. Just have them. You know, have Kamala Harris like just executing.
What about this?
Guantanamo Bay.
What about a deep fake of Xi Jinping saying some kind of thing that could potentially start a war? Right? They could deep fake Xi Jinping saying we're launching our nukes right now or something like that, and create a war out of it.
Yeah, that's something scary, like that, dude.
Where it's, they could go after Castro, or not Castro, he's dead now, but they could go after Cuba with that sort of thing. Anybody that didn't like they could go after.
Yeah, where it's time sensitive, and you know, I don't know how long these programs take to run to decipher whether or not it's fake or not, but you know,
they'd have to want to do that. If it's the CIA that's doing it, and they
if something's said and there's a ticking clock. All right, we got 10 minutes to make a decision whether this is real or fake. Then
we really don't like the government that's in Mexico right now. You know, they could just put out a deep fake and get some Americans on board to invade.
Yeah, then you know, we just kind of we put the apology on page 6 of the newspaper.
The retraction.
Find out that the retraction.
Sorry, this is a deep fake, guys. Sorry.
Oh, my bad. But they had it coming anyways.
All right. I wanted to talk about this Lazzaro case. I'm not sure if you looked into this, but it's Jesus Christ, bro. This is more Matt Gaetz type stuff going on in the Republican Party. This is in particular the Republican Party of Minnesota. This Jennifer Carnahan is associated with this character. I don't know what you want to call him. Let's introduce the guy here first, I guess. Tony Lazzaro.
In the Minnesota Republican Party. And tomorrow, Tony Lazzaro is going to appear in federal court on charges of sex trafficking a minor.
But who is Tony Lazzaro? Where did he come from? And where did his money come from? Tom Lydon with a look at what we know and what we don't know about his background.
Tony Lazzaro fancied himself an entrepreneur, but his greatest achievement may have been one of self-invention. The 30-year-old posed with a roster of Republican politicians.
Here's Mitt Romney, Trump. He's got pictures with Trump. This is Jennifer Carnahan right here, the head of the Minnesota GOP at the time. This is crazy, dude. This reminds me of Dan Bilzerian, dude.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Where'd he get his money? I'm sure it was legitimate.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about all this once before. Just, it's something about you get a certain amount of power, whether it be through.
He's some rich kid, probably. He's probably from some rich fucking family.
Money, whatever it is, and just the sense of entitlement that comes when you get wealth. Yeah, I'm gonna traffic some minors for sex. I'm just gonna go out there and flaunt it, and he's doing all this stuff and was still a had political power to a certain degree. You know, he was
getting more political power toward the end.
Yeah.
What broke this whole case was this chick here getting arrested, and she's of age. She just looks young here. She was arrested on sex trafficking charges, and she I guess was linked to this guy. A 19-year-old Minnesota woman was arrested in Florida, of course, on sex trafficking charges that are reportedly connected to the alleged underage sex trafficking operation linked to Minnesota Republican strategist Anton Tony Lazzaro. Lazzaro was charged with 5 counts of sex trafficking of a minor. They found out where he got his money from.
How does this even work? I mean, are these like kids that are kidnapped, or are they just kind of delinquent youths that are confused,
well, this girl here, let me put her back up. This is similar to the Epstein thing. This chick here is friends with Lazzaro, and she makes friends with these underage girls, and then brings the girls into the circle, and then they abuse them. Basically, they pimp them out essentially, and she's helping him do this. And she's a young-looking person. She's 19 at the time.
Jesus Christ.
I don't know how much blame you can put on her. You know, she's being manipulated too. Here's the Salon piece. I'll read a little bit of it here for the audience so they can get caught up. And this is talking about the Minnesota GOP, how the Minnesota GOP imploded from a toxic workplace to full-blown sex trafficking scandal. This is a piece in the Salon, August 27th. As she advanced in the party, they're talking about Kang here, this young intern. Kang grew increasingly uncomfortable with the casual racism and sexual harassment, which seemed to penetrate all levels of the organization. Talking about the Minnesota GOP here. Seemingly, as a matter of course, she was warned which men to avoid being alone with and which to avoid entirely. Things reached a head when she began working on a competitive special Senate campaign in northern Minnesota with Spencer Cryer, one of Carnahan's close associates, a fellow field staffer at the time. He often greeted her by adopting a faux Asian accent. Hello, Carrie Ray, forcing hugs and touching her inappropriately, even though Kang told him several times that the behavior made her uncomfortable. This was the trio here. It was Carnahan, Spencer Cryer, and this Anton Lazzaro were tight. They were seen many, many times together at parties and whatnot. Here's another quote from the Salon piece. In conversations with 7 current and former staffers of the Minnesota Republican Party, most of them women who requested anonymity for fear of retaliation, all shared similar experiences of racism and sexual harassment or assault by high-level employees of the state organization. The state's college Republican chapter also released a statement last week alleging that Carnahan covered up the sexual assault and rape of a member of the Republican Youth Organization, choosing not to act when the accusations were brought to her attention, and maintaining a public friendship with the accused even after he left his job in politics. This College Republicans Association chapter has denounced or said publicly that they don't have any affiliation with Carnahan and the GOP of Minnesota. They're apparently completely separate, which is BS, of course. The 30-year-old Lazzaro flaunted his lavish lifestyle on social media, driving a Ferrari, jetting to tropical locales, and often posting for pictures with large wads of cash. He even took a jaunt to Ukraine last year on a private plane to investigate Hunter Biden's dealings in the country, at the same time that Rudy Giuliani was there doing the exact same thing. And it says in the article that it's unclear if the two are connected in any way, even though they were there at the same time, doing the same thing, ostensibly.
Yeah, checking out some Eastern European prostitutes, most likely.
Here is Lazzaro's Instagram. Showing his money and his abs and shit. These stacks of cash, dude.
Cool abs, bro.
This is what you get when the SEC does fucking nothing for the country, right? Why aren't they investigating this shit?
If you don't investigate that, then what do you investigate?
Dude.
Some young dude...
At least look at his tax return and see what the fuck's going on, dude. Yeah. This guy had like four LLCs that did nothing. They had like P.O. boxes to a fucking UPS store.
Yeah, right.
Did nothing.
Like they tried to call his voicemail and it was full. Like they couldn't.
Let's see.
Just so obviously just made up companies. It seemed like
from the very beginning, everyone was like, "Who is this guy?" Kang said of Lazzaro. Kang is this young Asian intern again who came forward. I met him when he was 26 and throwing around thousands of dollars on state-level races. We all wanted to know how he amassed that kind of money so early in his career. Lazzaro has indeed been a prolific donor to the party since at least 2014, donating more than $100,000 to various political candidates, Republican candidates, including more than $30,000 to Carnahan's husband, Representative Jim Hagedorn, according to campaign finance filings. This Fox 9 TV station estimated that Lazzaro gave $273,000 to Minnesota GOP candidates and causes. They called him Sugar Daddy, apparently.
Yeah.
Dude.
It'd be nice if these politicians weren't incentivized to look the other way when they see such obvious, flagrant, shady dealings like this. You know, maybe they...
How often does this shit happen, do you think? I mean, come on.
Apparently constantly.
Probably constantly.
I think it is, especially if somebody that's born into wealth. And oh, man, I don't know. It's so
Could you imagine what would happen? What would we be like if we were born with that kind of money?
I don't know. That's the thing. This is something I had no idea that these things happen until, like, within the past few years. You know, something you hear about, be like, oh, that's not really a thing, you know, or maybe it happened that one time. But it seems to be so rampant, and it's so far removed from my experience of life growing up. The people I knew, you know, I knew you when we were kids, and we were not around wealth like that.
Right. We didn't have shit to lose. This guy ostensibly would have, you would think, a lot more to lose by committing these sorts of crimes. Why would you risk that?
If you've always been wealthy, you don't know how bad it can get, I guess. and then again, also, if you're wealthy like that and everybody around you is wealthy, you don't ever lose anything.
Sure.
He's never going to go broke. He's never going to be eating ramen noodles. You know, somebody will set him up with a job at some point. I mean, unless he goes to prison.
When you run those Ivy League circles, man, your contact list is a little different, you know.
That's what it is. It's those it just unbelievable level of, and in all honesty, it's probably a lot better now than it was 20 years ago. You know, if they're still this flagrant today, you know, imagine going to college back in the 80s or 90s.
Before social media, the level of, you mean?
Before, or just even before, like, the zeitgeist changed about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Sure.
I mean, off the top of my head, I'm thinking Caddyshack.
Well, you're thinking about the sexual stuff.
I'm thinking about the sexual stuff, but, you know, a lot of the stuff that's very taboo now, as it should be, was kind of thought of as a joke back then, you know.
I'm thinking about
on the sexual end, yeah,
large donations by criminals, basically, to political parties. $250,000 by this sex trafficker just donated to the Republicans of Minnesota.
It seems like we do all these stories that could be solved by keeping money out of politics.
Yeah, I know.
Keeping money away from keeping private and public officials separate. You know,
when they talk about political suicide, that's an issue that, you know, you'd be basically fighting against the entire political establishment if that was your main issue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a reason Bernie didn't run on that as his main issue. You know, he ran on healthcare.
Yeah, it's talking about generals earlier that were on the heads of partners on the board of defense contractors, and then this
ex-generals making money off of war being interviewed on CNN and shit.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
That's why it's so important, man.
Get money out of politics.
That's a great idea. Of course, the Supreme Court would strike it down. At 6-3 Supreme Court, they strike it down.
I don't know how that works. I know Cenk was pushing for that pretty hard. It's one of the big things that I supported Cenk for.
Yeah,
Cenk Uygur, Young Turks. Yeah, it was. You can call it a constitutional convention. I think it's like 2/3 of the state have to ratify it.
Yeah, that's the problem. You have to get 2/3. That's why nobody tries to go that route, I think, for anything really. And the problem with going at the states is the states have a lot less leverage against these companies than the federal government does, you know. Big companies can push around state governments a lot more easily. At the same time this story is going on, there was this whole Tucker Carlson thing involving this guy, this Anton Lazzaro. And I sort of missed this when it happened. Republican operatives in Minnesota, and this was Carnahan, the head of the GOP there, who was apparently presiding over rampant sexual harassment, among other things, and who's best friends with this Anton Lazzaro character. She asked Lazzaro to find, quote-unquote, find evidence of Ilhan Omar being related to her ex-husband, because there's this conspiracy theory rumor going around that Ilhan Omar married her brother to get him into the country with a visa or something like that. So they hired Lazzaro to go find evidence that Ilhan Omar is genetically related to her brother. Yeah. In a clip on Carlson's channel, some woman is saying, well, they had the evidence pulled up on the screen. I saw it. I saw the evidence there that it was a perfect match, 100% match. Definitely because they found a cigarette butt. And Ilhan Omar smoked cigarettes back in the day, so we know it was her. And they found conclusive evidence, but right then Lazzaro got arrested. Of course, it's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. Obviously, they arrested Lazzaro to cover this whole thing up about Ilhan Omar.
It's all coming together now.
It's been known for quite a while that Ilhan Omar apparently married her own brother to help him gain entry illegally into the country. That's a violation of immigration law.
Has it been known?
That actually happened, it turns out. And now we're learning the FBI had evidence to confirm it, but didn't do anything about it.
This just, how can you claim to be a journalist? Does he even claim to be a journalist? You can't say stuff like this. That's what separates. I know, but people think that he's a journalist.
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue.
You can't say untrue stuff if you're a journalist like this, not this blatantly. Fuck.
Him gain entry illegally into the country, that's a violation of immigration law. That actually happened, it turns out. And now we're learning the FBI had evidence to confirm it, but didn't do anything about it. Miranda Devine is an actual journalist. She works at the New York Post, where she writes a column. She joins us tonight to explain what exactly happened. Miranda, thanks so much for coming on.
Pleasure, Tucker. Well, some basically Republican operatives up in Minnesota decided...
Yeah, I'm talking about Lazzaro here.
...decided to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on private investigators to really find out if Ilhan Omar was a genetic match, the DNA match, to the man who was her second husband. They went to three...
This is Lazzaro's, one of his companies, Big Tent Republicans. This is the political group.
So not only is he an entrepreneur extraordinaire, money raiser extraordinaire, got some sweet ass abs, but he's also a super sleuth. Investigating Hunter Biden, investigating Ilhan Omar. He's the man you want on the job, apparently.
Continents, they found a cigarette butt and a drinking straw, which they sent it to a DNA laboratory and found conclusively that the DNA matched, that the second husband was a sibling, according to this DNA sample. So the very day that they were going to unleash this on the world, and in fact I was interviewing one of the people.
See, it says he puts this blurb up that shows probability of full siblingship versus no relation, 99.999. What is this document, though?
Yeah.
You can't even see the document. Like, what's going on with this document?
Yeah, that's meaningless. You know, who put it out? Who was the lab that tested this stuff? What did they actually test?
Yeah, it's so blurry you can't read it.
Involved. The FBI swooped on the gentleman, Anton Lazzaro, from this Republican PAC up in Minnesota, and arrested him on some different charges. Who knows whether he's guilty or not guilty. I mean, he's not guilty until
he's
proven,
innocent
but
until proven
he's
guilty
in jail.
He's a Republican.
And so his story never got to see the light of day. I mean, luckily he'd told the FBI they were not interested. They told him the statute of limitations had run out. We managed to see the website before he took it down, before he was arrested, and managed to report the story such as it was.
I wonder, just kind of spitballing here, what will be more shocking to her fellow liberals? The fact that Ilhan Omar had an incestuous marriage to her own brother, or that she smoked cigarettes? Which will they be more stunned by?
So charming.
Cigarettes for me, personally. I've got no problem with incestuous marriage.
So the FBI knew about it, but they didn't do anything about it. And apparently the evidence it vanished into thin air because the FBI got a hold of it. They can't call the laboratory to get the results or anything like that.
FBI always out there trying to cover for the libs, as usual.
As usual.
As usual. Once again.
Carnahan eventually does resign from the Minnesota GOP. I have in my notes here, she made as much noise as possible on the way out, loudly trumpeting her innocence while casting the deciding vote to give herself a severance of more than $35,000. She described herself as the victim of a coup led by a mob mentality that she said sought to defame, tarnish, and attempt to ruin my personal and professional reputation. She tried to denounce Lazzaro, trying to say she barely knew him. She don't even know why he was on the guest list to her wedding, all this type of stuff. Meanwhile, she did a podcast with him, and he was like one of her closest personal friends.
Oh, my God.
Like, how do you try to pretend like you're not buddies with this guy?
One of them had to commission that painting of the two of them. And
right.
Putting that kind of money up for somebody.
I do all podcasts all the time with people I barely know.
All the time.
Let's see. He was invited to her wedding. He was a guest at many events that she chaired. Carnahan has never apologized. She posted defiantly on Facebook that she, Donald Trump, and Brett Kavanaugh have much in common, quote unquote. So that's good company to be in. She says, "I'm proud to stand in good company among men that have experienced what I have recently gone through. Although what they went through was way worse," she states.
Yeah.
Of course, Kavanaugh was nominated to the Supreme Court of the land in the midst of a sexual assault scandal, which seemed fairly credible at the time. I don't know if you saw that testimony, but...
Oh, the Kavanaugh?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I followed that.
That was a big impetus to the whole Me Too movement, really.
Yeah.
And her testimony, Christine Blasey Ford's testimony, seemed pretty damn credible, dude. And they still nominated him anyway. That just tells you where the country's at. There's a term for what the Republicans do. This is whenever you basically what you do is you accuse other people of doing basically what you do to cover for your ass. This is called gaslighting, and this is what the Republicans do because they put all these conspiracy theories out there like QAnon. They're going after the pedophiles, right? And this is what the fucking Republicans are doing. They're a bunch of pedophiles, dude. This fucking Matt Gaetz character and the Republican. What was he, a mayor or something like that he was involved with in Florida? The Matt Gaetz case?
The tax collector, wasn't it?
A tax collector, you're right, yeah. That was a crazy story. Tax collector who spent millions of dollars.
Well, I mean, and then
you have this case with the Minnesota GOP just being completely corrupt all through the ranks, dude.
Donald Trump taught the politicians of this country that truth does not matter. That, if you get in trouble, you just gaslight. You just turn around and blame them. You play the victim. They're out to get you.
If you're going to do some shit, blame someone else for what you're doing at the same time.
and if you know you're getting ready to be you're about to be indicted for something, have some story made up about something that you were investigating against the lefties, so that when your indictment comes out, oh well, they're just trying to stop me against
right. They're trying to cover.
They're just trying to keep me from going after. I was this close to getting Illinois, right. And then they throw these charges against me for having sex with a bunch of underage girls and
that's so crazy that Tucker
politicians.
Tucker can be that brazen, dude, and people just buy it.
It's not impossible that she did it. Yes, I don't think that there's any evidence that.
Why would you accuse a public figure of that sort of thing?
The evidence, maybe she did, but the evidence that they've provided from just watching that clip of Tucker is completely nonsense. This is part of the fairy tale of Fox News, because the ones in power, they're not the real power brokers. The ones that are really pulling the puppet master is Ilhan Omar and AOC and the squad.
Give me a break, dude.
It's this narrative, and if you talk to a Fox News listener, those are the people you're going to hear about. These freshman representatives that have no power. The only reason you know their name is
women and minorities,
photogenic, and they're on Twitter.
Yeah,
but they want to craft these stories and these narratives about this craziness, and it's so far removed from reality that where do you even start? I mean, let's see. I'm reading PolitiFact right now.
Oh, about the Ilhan Omar thing?
Yeah.
Even if it's true, what relevance does it have to public policy? It's so far from public policy talk that it's like, guys, do you not understand what's important?
I mean, if it happened, it would be relevant.
How so?
I think
it would be relevant to her campaign, but it wouldn't be relevant.
It wouldn't be relevant to
like
not
any
at all
sort of legislation
policy.
that would be coming down the pipeline.
Of course not. But it would be relevant to the voters in her jurisdiction.
Sure, I could see that.
To know that, hey,
it should be known. It should be known if she committed some sort of crime, for sure.
Yeah, that she committed. I mean, I don't.
You can't just accuse people of crimes they didn't commit for political. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what he's done.
That's a smear campaign. That's called a smear.
And it's not just that he's accusing her of committing a crime. There's also the very not so underhanded accusation of incest.
Right.
It's one thing to like, hey, I'm going to pretend this guy's my brother and marry him.
You're right. I didn't even notice. I didn't even pick up on that, dude.
I mean, he said this incestuous sibling marriage. He's
right. He didn't have to be incestuous to. Yeah, didn't have to be incestuous.
This insinuation that she's fucking her brother.
She not only married him, but she fucked him for no reason. She didn't have to.
I mean, that's the.
I didn't even catch that. That's hilarious. If you are interested in nootropics, check out my website. Our line of cutting-edge products is available at our lowest prices of the year. Take 30% off your entire order with discount code SUMMER at MetaMaxPerformance.com.
ShireHempFarms.com, your best source for Kentucky-grown CBD, smokable hemp, and Delta 8 products. Come check us out. Podcast listeners will get 20% off their order by using the code ESPOD. ShireHempFarms.com. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you like the show, please subscribe. Please follow us on social media. Visit our homepage for all that contact information. Follow us on Reddit. Follow us on Podbean and Spotify. Follow us everywhere. Thank you guys for checking us out and supporting our content. My wife tested positive for COVID, so we're all... Remember how I said I was sick last week?
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're on lockdown. We're on lockdown until mid-September.
Huh. That's cool. I guess everybody's okay. They're probably getting by it pretty easy.
Yeah, the kids barely got sick.
Kids.
Me and her were sick for like 4 days or so. The first 2 days were bad, and the rest of it it's like a bad cold. We're both vaccinated, so. But
so you were vaccinated?
Yeah, we're both vaccinated. We both still got it. I mean, you can still get it. It's just the symptoms aren't as bad, obviously, but
yeah.
We're locked together in the house for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's fun for like the first 4 or 5 days. Yeah,
kids love it.
When me and my ex had it, I I mean, I'm a homebody anyways. I could care less. But
yeah, same.
You know, we had people like delivering food to our door, and you know, like neighbors and whatnot were going out to Kroger for us, and
oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
We got the pickup thing at Walmart. That's what we've been doing for the duration.
I did the Kroger delivery service where they go up and shop for you and bring it to your house. It's the worst service ever.
Yeah, because they don't get what you want.
No, not at all. I have
try to eat healthy. You want certain shit, you know.
Yeah, I went to culinary school. I put something on the list that I want. I want that specific. That's what I want. Exactly. I want that specific thing. If you don't have that, then don't bring me something else. I think I was like wanted chicken breast or something, boneless, skinless chicken breast, and they brought me like a big bag of thighs.
Well, in the second half of the show this week, I wanted to talk some more. We started this conversation, I think, in episode 9. We started sort of a discussion on basically taxes and the tax code, and this is all centered around this Guardian piece on upward mobility. This is talking about the American dream, upward mobility in the United States. Underlying this belief is the assumption of abundant opportunity and meritocracy. Arriving immigrants often believe that they have come to a land of opportunity, with a level playing field allowing for advancement and success. Those who fail to do so tend to blame themselves. Yet, according to recent research, the United States has far less mobility and equality of opportunity today than the European Union or other OECD countries. First, the amount of economic advantage passed down from one generation to the next is much higher in the U.S. Approximately 50% of a father's income position is inherited by his son. In contrast, the amount in Norway or Canada is less than 20%. What about rising from rags to riches? In the U.S., 8% of children raised in the bottom 20% of the income distribution are able to climb to the top 20%. I'll read that again. In the U.S., 8% of children raised in the bottom 20% of the income distribution are able to climb to the top 20% as adults, while the figure in Denmark is nearly double at 15%. Equality of opportunity is also much less viable in the U.S. than in other OECD countries. American life expectancy varies by up to 20 years depending on the zip code of residence. Quality of education also differs widely depending on the wealth of the neighborhoods that families reside in. And the chances of being victimized by a crime, exposed to environmental toxins, or having unmet healthcare needs is far greater for America's poor than those impoverished in all other OECD countries. So I'm not sure if you caught all that, but they're basically laying out how, obviously, we know how property taxes work in this country. If you go to a poor neighborhood school, you have a shitty education. That's just how it works. If you go to a nice white people school in the suburbs, you have a good education.
Yeah, this was a
20-year difference in life expectancy based on this zip code.
That's not surprising. I mean, you've been to Valley Station.
Sure.
I mean, like, not as a joke, they got the cement plant and they have the coal-powered coal plant there. And first off, you see all the steel around it's corroded. There's some interesting number that come out. They did the incidences of lung disease and lung cancer if you live within 5 miles of a coal plant. And it was like a factor greater than anywhere else. They don't put that in the Oldham County. It's on the poorer parts of Louisville is where they put
it. Of course. Yeah, because the property values are lower there.
Yeah.
That's a result of redlining, in large part. In addition, cancer is caused by an accumulation of these small things, dude. Small toxins in your environment accumulate over your lifetime, and that's when you get fucking cancer when you're old.
But
you're right, it's not surprising.
And what we're talking about here is this is the American dream. This is if you work hard, you put your nose to the grindstone, you'll be able to you can get as far as you want to go with the sweat off your brow, whatever.
This is the bullshit that Ben Shapiro peddles,
Yeah. So this was something I'd seen a couple of years ago. The global Social Mobility Index. This is from, well, I guess their most recent one's from 2020, so I think we went down.
Yeah.
Ranks
it wasn't
United
that
States
bad before, and it has gotten worse.
We're at 27.
Right.
So we are 27th in the American dream. We are beat by Lithuania beats us in the American dream.
I wanted to put this at the top of the show, that is upward mobility sort of this point. The point that upward mobility is not the be-all and end-all in the United States, especially these days. Not whatsoever. I have two things here. I have a quote from Lyndon B. Johnson. As President Lyndon B. Johnson once explained to an aide in 1960, I'll tell you what's at the bottom of it. You can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best colored man. He won't notice you picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets to you. This is a point you've made before. Like, you know, the working class in this country thinks that they're better than someone else. You know, brown people or what have you, or like welfare queens or whatnot.
Yeah.
And therefore, they don't need to adhere to working class policies because, you know, they're working class, but they're on their way up. You know.
Yeah.
Here is the clip of our previous podcast I wanted to share to remind us where we left off on this discussion.
No, I don't. Yeah, so Jeff Bezos is I don't think that should happen. I've got no problem with somebody making.
What do you think the highest nominal tax rate should be?
I'm going to put it 50% over 500,000. And that's a real 50%. That's not an effective. That's not a nominal 50%. That's an effective half of everything you make over 500,000.
You know, in France, you. So I wonder if you still stick to that, or do you still come down on that that way? You still believe that the very rich should only have half of their income taxed?
Yeah, I do. I think that's a good starting point. It's not. I mean, this is I think what we got into on that podcast, or when I brought up. It's not just for the government to take the money; it's for it to be used effectively too.
Sure.
And you know, I mean, and that's the other kind of big point of this part of this equation.
Well, it can't be used less effectively than sitting in some
Are you sure?
money market account.
Are you sure?
Well,
I mean, they'll end up finding some way to rake it back out, and then the policy fails. They say, well, we tried Tony's 50% tax rate, and it failed, and so now we're going to lower it down to way below where it was. Yeah, it's.
I want to show some European numbers here, just because Americans have no clue what goes on in the rest of the world because they don't care about the rest of the world. But I like to have a little context to the discussion here. This is Portugal, who's in the midst of a left movement, sort of, because left as a movement can be, you know, on a national level, I guess. And this is resident income tax rate for 2021. This is personal tax rates. Over 80,000 euros is taxed at 48%. So that's pretty close to what you stated. And they also have the solidarity tax, which is a phenomenal idea, and we should do here. In 2021, an additional solidarity tax rate. I love the terminology, by the way. The solidarity tax.
They're letting people know where they're coming from.
Oh, for sure, dude. Well, you saw the political parties of Portugal. I had that spread before. An additional solidarity rate, which varies between 2.5 and 5%, applies to taxpayers with a taxable income exceeding 80,000 euros. So it's just an additional 2.5 to 5% on top. Yeah. So they're right around 50% for top nominal.
I think that's a wonderful idea. It is an absolutely wonderful idea.
So not too crazy, in my opinion.
No, and just to point out, because this is always the right-wing retort, I'm not at least, arguing for equality of outcome. This is all about equality of opportunity.
No, yeah, that's a red herring.
It is a red herring through and through that they throw out there. It's like, let's go to the most extreme example. Oh, you're arguing for gradual improvements to a pre-existing system, and we're just going to throw it to the most extreme example possible. Everybody only gets to make $40,000 a year, and that's it. And yeah, you get to do it whether you work 80 hours a week or not work at all. So,
Swedish kronar from 0 to 500,000 is taxed at 32% flat rate, 0% national income tax. So they have a much higher municipal income tax and a much lower national income tax in Sweden. I don't know how much 5,000 kroner are, but so 32% flat up to 500,000 kroner. Anything over 500,000 kroner is an additional 20% because then the national income tax kicks in and you pay 52%.
Okay, it's about a tenth. So it would be about $50,000.
About 50,000.
Okay. Yeah, 520,000.
So if you make up to 50,000, you pay 32%. And if you make above that, you pay 52%.
I had just incidentally today, I was listening to a podcast is a YouTube channel, How Money Works, and they had this great video about job loyalty and just kind of the myth of job loyalty in the U.S. about you're not going to get ahead by staying someplace; they're going to hire from outside.
Oh, okay.
Anyways. And they go in a little bit. They talk about the Swedish welfare system and how the Swedish welfare, like the entrepreneurship, the levels of entrepreneurship in Sweden are so much higher than in the U.S. because there is a safety net and because people don't have to worry about literally losing everything if they want to try something. So you have all these interesting ideas and new companies being formed, and there's a bunch of Swedish YouTubers. I think PewDiePie's Swedish, but they're able to do these things and try these things because they have that safety net there, and it doesn't. Tucker or Ben Shapiro would make the argument that this is going to kill innovation, and we have evidence to show that no, it enforces it, it promotes it.
We don't care about them. They're not rich yet. They're just trying to get rich. They don't count, Tony.
Oh, thank you for explaining that.
Denmark. System in Denmark. Let's see. Personal income tax. Altogether, the marginal tax rate cannot exceed 52%. However, labor market tax, share tax, property value tax, and church tax are not comprised by this rule. So personal income tax cannot exceed 50%. And it looks to be around 12 plus 8 is 20. And it seems to be about 45 for the top and about 32 for the bottom, right? But they have this additional tax in Denmark called the share tax. This is essentially a capital gains tax. It's a tax on shares, which we have nothing like in this country.
Yeah.
So if you earn income, for example, Jeff Bezos, that's how he makes all his money. He has a ton of shares in Amazon. And he would get taxed in Denmark 42% for all that value that he creates out of the market fluctuation.
Yeah, the wealth that is generated off of his income, where he can just have it sit in accrue value as opposed to.
Well, he takes out loans against it. He doesn't have to take it out and pay taxes on it. That's the difference. And then he can write it off. It's a little more complicated in Denmark, but it can't exceed 52%, which is sort of what you had said. So it's pretty.
And then someone would say, well, 52%. I mean, I wouldn't want 52% of my earnings to go into taxes, but I mean, even in the U.S., if you just start to break it down, okay, you pay 25% in taxes, then how much of your paycheck goes towards your health insurance, and how much of your paycheck goes to all these other things that in these countries are just taken care of. Like, we're probably paying close to that between taxes and services that would be taken care of through the public sector in these countries. So,
sure. I wanted to lead this into a discussion of taxes and this whole idea of, well, if it was my income, would I want half of it to be taxed? And it's like, if you rob a bank and you can only keep half the money, you'd be pretty fucking happy. That's my point of view, looking at this sort of thing. This whole idea that they earn this money in some way, they have some right to this money because it's in their fucking bank account, is completely ahistorical and unfactual.
Who are you talking about?
Anyone.
Anyone.
You have no right to anything. How do you have a right to something you saying that I have a right to this property is the same thing as you saying everyone else on this planet doesn't have a right to this property. Because for one basic argument, this shit's all linked, dude. If you ruin the environment, we're all fucked.
Yeah.
We all are stakeholders in the property.
Okay, but as far as income goes, I mean, I think my income is tied to the work that I do, the risks that I take, the capital that I put in to generate the capital that comes out.
That capital
come up from other work that I did. You know, I started at a certain point. I mean, in my case, I started with no money.
Sure.
I worked through under exploitative companies that treated you like crap. Got a little bit of money together, started investing that money. So I feel like that the money that I have is my money. I earned it in a fair, not exploiting anybody, not whatever.
Well, in your case, I would say that you probably have a very large percentage of the money that you've earned through labor.
Yeah.
The same argument can't be made for capital. When we're talking about capital, we're talking about money that gets invested to create these companies, and we're talking about.
I think it's just because when you were saying that, when you were initially talking, and correct me if I'm understanding you wrong, but it sounded like you were saying just money in general, that what any one particular person has in their account, they don't really have a right to. But you're just talking about the higher echelons.
You have a right to the fruits of your labor, sure. And then everything above that, there's a collective aspect that has to be taken into account. Anything above the product of your labor. Because you don't own natural resources. You're not born with any sort of God-given right to the fucking oil well beneath you. That's absolutely ridiculous. And the whole idea, every bit of property on this land was stolen from the Native Americans that were fucking massacred.
Well, if nobody owns it, then nothing was stolen. I don't know. I mean, this is a kind of philosophical argument that I just don't
disagree
buy
completely. It's not a philosophical argument whatsoever. It's a pragmatic argument. Every bit of property that Western civilization has some sort of claim to ownership is completely fraudulent. Just historically speaking.
What?
Based on history.
Well, why is it just Western civilization, first off? And I don't understand why it's fraudulent. Early on in this country, it was based on staking claims. You know, I go somewhere, I get some land, I use that, I stake this claim. I say, this is my land. I'm going to improve this land. I'm going to use this land. This land becomes mine because if I put fences up to put my cattle in and I plant an orchard, I do this, I'm improving the land. I build a dam. Huh?
By your definition, not by the definition of the Sioux Indians that may have lived there at the time.
Well, who lived there before the Sioux Indians? You know, if property doesn't exist for you or I, it doesn't exist for them either. If you or I don't have a right to the property that we're on, then they didn't have a right to the property that they were on.
Okay, good. Then we're all at zero.
Different.
Then we're all at zero property. We all have zero ownership of all property. I agree.
Okay, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all.
So the Native Americans have a right to it, according to your definition.
Under your definition, there was nothing to be stolen because nothing was owned to begin with.
Sure.
I think the property is owned by the people that are in possession of it this time, for the most part. Obviously, there's...
So if somebody comes and kills us and takes the land, then they have a right to it?
I mean, this gets a lot into at what point, when laws come into effect, and how you...
As soon as you kill the Native Americans, the laws come into effect? I mean...
What they had to come into effect... I don't know about it. When
the African Americans
come into effect?
The African Americans improved the land in the South. They don't have any fucking rights to that land.
No, I mean, it's not a perfect system by any means. You know, but I think the absence of ownership of land is a less perfect system than the imperfect system we have now. You know, and obviously you can improve land. I mean, you know, it is kind of messed up. I can go work. I have had people come here work on my farm.
Sure.
And they.
I'm pretty sure what you did to the land. I'm pretty sure what the white people did to the land, the Native Americans wouldn't say they improved it.
I don't know why their definition of improving it's relevant.
Because you're saying that if you improve the land, then some magical ownership takes place.
I'm saying that's the basis for
there is no
land
basis.
being divvied up on ownership to begin with. I mean, there's a legal. These are all arbitrary. They're all axiomatic. At a certain point, we create a law. We create an understanding. Okay, this is how we're going to divvy these things up. This is when we're going to start claiming ownership.
What do you mean we? What about the people that already lived here?
I'm talking about the people that are here when the laws are written. Yes, it's imperfect. It's imperfect.
That's not imperfect. That's theft. That's imperialism and capitalism. That's theft.
It's not theft if they didn't own it to begin with. Under your understanding, they didn't own it to begin with.
Well, then you still don't own it. Under my definition, you still don't own it.
Nobody does. Nobody does.
I agree.
Yes, and nobody does, which means that it was not stolen.
Then everybody does.
Okay. Well,
every bit of money in fucking Jeff Bezos' bank account is exploitative money. None of that money he earned through his fucking labor. Or very, very little. Let's just put it that way.
Very little.
Certainly nowhere near the billions and billions he has sitting there accruing interest.
Very little.
That's the basic point.
Yeah.
And you can extrapolate that down to, obviously, I'm not advocating for land redistribution or anything like that. I think the peasants owning land is a pretty integral part of society. We sort of have seen that already. And, modern socialist theory doesn't have a land redistribution aspects to it. And certainly they're not advocating for abolishing private property. What I'm saying is that property in general, this idea that some farmer owns fucking 500 acres for some weird reason that dates back to mass murder, it's not justified. It's just not. What we're really talking about here is, where does value come from? Obviously, this is the labor theory of value that I always talk about. There's no good argument against it because it's right. The capitalists try to use this sort of this capitalist theory of value they have. They try to really make it obfuscated, but if you break it down, it's basically labor cost or labor plus profit plus rent, and this rent is the means of production, right? So this is the machinery, this is renting the land to produce the shit. And all this comes down to this false idea of property rights, which doesn't fucking exist. So, in my opinion, value comes from labor, and it should. There's no way someone who has $10 billion in their bank account has done $10 billion worth of labor. It's just ridiculous. It's all based on a system of theft and exploitation dating back to slavery, dating back to mass murder of Native American, back to the mercantilist days of the Dutch East India Company, sending scores and scores of indentured servants from England over here to be slaves for a decade, and half of them died in that process, and some of them were lucky enough to get land at the end of it. Yes.
I mostly agree with that. I think that wealth is primarily generated through labor. I don't know how you would add it in there, but I feel like risk and putting your own money in should have a return in and of itself over and above the labor that you put in to any venture that you're going towards. And
that's
it's really hard to it's hard to quantify.
That's capitalism, right? That's having the capital to invest.
Yeah, and I mean, capital doesn't necessitate theft or owning property.
Sure.
If you want to get a loan, you can. I'm going to go get a loan from the bank. Okay, now that's my capital. I didn't steal that money from anybody. Maybe you could say somewhere along the line it was stolen by the, whatever. But
what happens when your business fails because it's a terrible idea?
You lose.
You file bankruptcy.
You lose that money.
And the society loses that value, right?
Yeah. I mean,
alternatively,
these are imperfect. Yeah. Alternatively, you would pay.
A collective group of people could decide on an investment, and then the community votes on it. Should we make this investment? If you have a really good idea and you're a famous inventor, this is what we sort of got into last time. Like, what about this idea of the inventor, right? You have a great idea. You want to take out a loan and make millions and millions of dollars, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing preventing that from happening. There's nothing from preventing Scott from coming up with a great new pocket push.
Right.
I shouldn't say that. And going to the Brandenburg Council meeting and saying, "Hey guys, let's take that road money, give it to me, so I can, it's just." I mean, I guess the system would just have to be created for something like that.
Well, he's not going to get a loan. He's not going to get a loan because he's Scott.
He's not going to get a loan. Yeah. Sorry, Scott.
He's not a capitalist. You have to be a capitalist, Scott.
You got to be a capitalist, Scott.
You have to have assets.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
So why does it have to be a financial? You think people won't invent things without a huge financial potential reward? Is that the idea?
No, I'm not saying that they won't, but I'm saying that that would be a big motivator for me.
Right.
If I invent something, I want to get over and above the amount of, I'm assuming your argument would be that all labor, each hour of labor is going to be roughly valued about the same. We'll say $30 an hour, something like that.
Well, no, in modern theory, there's variations, right? But it's a plurality. It's not like the CEOs should be making, exponentially more.
I'm in agreement with that. I'm in complete agreement with that. If my company just takes off and I think that I have a moral responsibility to the people working for me to give them a greater share of the wealth that's generated by the company that I made, the company that I started off. Now, I would feel like the person at the top that if they do put in that extra risk and labor, that you derive something from the extra bit you put in, but you're not going to get $10 billion when you're paying your employees $30,000. I think that's exploitative to the core.
Right. Well, that's just that. There's no reason for that, is there? What's the purpose of all that extra value going to thin air?
You can show your abs piles of cash on Instagram. That's the reason.
Child sex slave money?
Yeah, get that child sex slave dollars.
Ah, jeez. Well, yeah, that's basically in line with modern theory, right? So the socialist policies that people advocate for these days don't even kick in until your company has like 50 employees, right? And then they get a vote.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And in terms of the income, that just depends. How does it shake out at the voting? It's time to vote. What do they want to pay the CEO of the company? They're gonna want to pay him well, but they're not gonna, because maybe one day they'll get that position, but they're not gonna pay him what fucking Bezos makes. They probably can't afford to, for one.
Yeah, I mean,
the whole idea of this, this entrepreneur worship culture is this Elon Musk shit is completely ridiculous, right? These guys don't fucking invent anything. The people that work for him invent this shit. Everything that's invented these days is invented in laboratories run by the government and funded by the government, at least. I mean, what's invented by a private citizen these days that?
Certainly stuff like that. I mean, there's one person. I mean, you could shout out Mike Lindell. I mean, I guess you could make the argument that they're they have a certain, that they're not necessarily inventing, but they're a great administrator. I think like Steve Jobs, that would be the claim made about him. He wasn't in there figuring out what to do with Windows or how to upgrade or whatever, but he had a real talent for bringing people together.
Jobs
knew how to do this stuff, bringing the right people together. I don't know. I'm just going off of what the arguments that would be.
That's
made.
Mostly a myth. All that shit's a myth, dude. That's mostly just capitalist propaganda, in my opinion.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't see why it's necessarily why it couldn't be true. I'm sure in a lot of cases it's not. It's just propaganda being put out by the CEO.
Back in the 40s and 30s, the thinking was, an inventor is going to get rich off the accolades. They don't also need a financial incentive necessarily.
Yeah.
The glory that comes with, that's what scientists in these laboratories, that's what they chase, is the glory of making that discovery. The money's going to come either way. They make good money, but the myth I wanted to touch on is this idea of upward mobility, coming back to our original point. And this is sort of the scratch-off economy, right? Every working-class person thinks that they have a shot to make it to the top 1%, so they all support the system.
Yeah, it was. I think last time I said it was a Mark Twain quote, Steinbeck quote. Americans don't see themselves as poor; they see themselves as temporarily inconvenienced millionaires.
It's a smart strategy to use to keep the status quo, right? That's not some.
Yeah, I mean that's how you kill solidarity. How you kill class solidarity, and America has perfected it.
It's not. We're not asking for crazy shit. We're really not. We're just asking for, once you get 50 employees, give your employees a voting stake in the company, for one. And for two, we want to raise taxes a little bit. It's not the end of the world, guys. But I appreciate you coming on, Tony, and discussing these very pressing issues.
Hey, always happy to, James. Thanks for having me, and check us out. MetaMaxPerformance.com, ShowerHempFarms.com. Both got promo codes going on right now, so get it while it's hot.
2 more days.
Peace.
We'll see you guys next week.